With that, let's welcome in Anthony Esposito, CEO and founder of Ascalon 6 Capital. Pete Sepp is here, president of the National Taxpayers Union. Gentlemen, welcome. Anthony, start us off. We got a new nickname now for Mr. Powell, Numbskull here. No surprise, though, the president's still not pleased with rates not changing.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the nicest word that the president could use for him at this time. Look, Jerome Powell has mismanaged the Fed all the way through. He's been losing money since 2022. We're losing about $100 billion a year based on poor monetary policy, poor management of the balance sheet. It's a debacle at this point. He's got rates at almost at a 25-year high, with the exception of about 8 months. And he's trailing the other developed nations, in particular the EU, as far as where rates are. So mismanagement of monetary policy, mismanagement of the balance sheet, and politicized rate cuts heading into the election. I think numbskull is probably the nicest word that the president could choose.
Well, look, the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, he wants the entire Federal Reserve just completely looked at to see how things are handled there, if things are handled appropriately in terms of his economic understanding, if proper choices have been made. I'll tell you this, I mean, the president's not wrong, Pete, about purchasing a house right now. There's so many people that are just choosing to rent because of the rates. Yes, you can buy a home at the high interest rates, refinance later, but that's a lot, and that's a lot of throwing away money, again, when you're not seeing those rates where they were at 2 or 3%, but now 6-7%, and it really hasn't moved. And that's the American dream, to own your own home, and it's seemingly impossible for so many Americans right now, Pete.
Yeah, exactly. And we're forgetting the fundamentals here in Washington about how to make home ownership more affordable. It's about interest rates and it's about taxes. Those are the two biggest components of a closing cost for a mortgage. They're some of the biggest ongoing expenses for maintaining a home. You know, you have to pay property tax. You have interest rate fluctuations. If you have an adjustable rate mortgage, even a fixed rate mortgage, you have all those points. You have government mandated closing costs. All of those things need to be looked at. And instead, we're kind of dithering back and forth here about items like, oh, credit scores cost too much. No, we've got to concentrate on what really drives home ownership costs, bring them down. Chair Powell hasn't done a great job at that, but he ought to be reading the signals now that, okay, if you want to be cautious because of tariff threats, look at the Japan deal, one of our largest trading partners. Tariffs are starting to ease. The negotiations are working. The European Union will probably be next.
You set that up nicely for us, Pete. Let's dive into the details of this Japanese trade deal here. The president sharing on Truth Social a bit more information. Japan will invest, at my direction, $550 billion into the United States, which will receive 90% of the profits. Japan will open their country to trade, including cars and trucks, rice, and certain other agricultural products. Japan will pay reciprocal tariffs to the United States of 15%. Anthony, how does this deal look in your mind?
I think it's great. Japan is an ally across the board. I think the deal sets up well, right? We're now going to charge them a 15% tariff versus what was threatened as a 25% tariff. That's a great deal for Japan. They need to export auto parts, machinery to the U.S. We know that they're a surplus nation, which most nations are. But then we get this private investment in, right? We get this innovative fund. Where we have $550 billion coming in CapEx and investment in the U.S. And that private investment, that CapEx spending, is a huge part to the Trump plan to reduce deficits and to increase growth in this country without seeing inflation. I think it's a great deal with a great ally.
Oh, the president touting this trade deal with Japan as one of the greatest ever. Let's play that for you.
I just signed the largest trade deal in history. I think maybe the largest deal in history with Japan. And that was done with Japan. They had their top people here, and we worked on it long and hard, and it's a great deal for everybody. I always say it has to be great for everybody. It's a great deal.
So reciprocal tariffs of 15% and almost half or more than $500 billion invested into the United States by Japan. We've seen the Philippines, we've seen other countries as well come to the table, even though there's a lot of skepticism about this. Peter, are you coming around to the tariffs negotiations with Trump and other nations?
We've always stressed at NTU that the way forward is to work toward lower tariffs through tougher negotiations, zero or lower trade barriers, and zero or lower subsidies. The Japan agreement checks all those boxes. The fact that German automaker stocks are rising right now in anticipation that they may get the same deal is yet another indication that that type of policy, rather than actually levying high tariffs, is the way to go. And it couldn't be better for investment in the United States, domestically or foreign, right now, thanks to passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act and all of the great pro-growth tax policies that are in there. It's a great time to put your money in the United States.
Yeah, I'm just wondering from a media perspective, if all the news outlets that ran with the concern initially of Liberation Day about how bad these trade deals could be are bringing these updates, right? The trade deal with Japan, with the Philippines here, with markets well into the green, it looks like, to start the day. We got to leave it there, gentlemen. Anthony Esposito, Pete Sepp, thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.